Welcome to episode 13 of Resilience to the Core podcast with me, Candace Bester. Tonight I'm putting a bit of a spin on things, and instead of interviewing somebody, I am going to be chatting about something that is very, very close to my heart. The title of this podcast is The Biggest Gift You Can Possibly Give Your Children. None of what I say tonight is out of a space of judgment or criticism. It is coming from a space of concern and me really wanting to change the world for the better. Every single child that crosses my path, I feel compelled to save. And my mission is to empower, to support and encourage parents so that the next generation can come up being stronger, happier and healthier. Please don't see this as anything to beat yourself up about. My quote, and I claim it, is I truly believe that everybody is doing the best that they can with what they have. But when we know better, we have the responsibility to do better. I'd like to start by asking you a question. If you had one wish for your child, and it could be absolutely anything, what would that wish be? I'm speaking on behalf of all parents, and I think it's safe to say that we just want our children to be healthy, safe and protected, and to grow up to be happy and successful adults. Successful in their career, successful in their relationships, and just successful in life. And in order for that to happen, they need a very solid set of core values. And I've just thrashed out a few, but feel free to add in whichever ones you feel fit or whichever ones are important to you. So the qualities that I want to see in my children are that they are hardworking, that they're kind, that they're empathetic, that they're compassionate, that they're connected, and that they are loving. So in order for them to be these things, which are very important to me, I need them to listen. I need them to be good listeners. I need them to listen to me and their teachers. I need them to work hard and do their very best. And I need them to be kind to everybody around them. I need them to have beautiful manners, to think about other people, to behave, to be respectful, and to achieve, well, at least to achieve to the very best of their ability. So I think it's safe to say that this is what I expect from our children, and I hope that there's some things that resonate here with you. And now I'd like to take a step back and ask, so if it is that they are not being one of those things that I expect them to be, then how do I behave? What is it that I do, and how do I behave when my children are not listening, when they're not being kind, when they're not thinking about other people, when they're being disrespectful, when they are just not doing what I think they should be doing as children? So on a good day, I would ask them nicely and I would encourage them, and then I would maybe praise them when they get it right. But now I'd like you to take a moment to think that what happens on a bad day? What behavior do you display when dealing with your children who are not behaving according to how you think they should be behaving on a bad day? So do you shout? Do you control them with consequences? Maybe you withdraw, maybe you withhold. I'm not sure what that looks like, but I think it's time for us to really, really check in. So how often, if you have to think about every single day, how often is it that you just feel off? That you maybe feel angry or irritated or stressed or sad or overwhelmed? And then how often is it that you discipline out of anger? And I'm speaking about shouting, punishing, and instilling harsh consequences. How often does that happen? And now I'm going to take a leap of faith and ask you, or tell you, I'm really going to rattle your cage here. What if it was more true that children should not listen all the time? That they should slack in their work? that there are times that they should be unkind and forget their manners and not think about other people and misbehave and be disrespectful, and that they should fail and throw temper tantrums and be angry and cry and definitely be busy. How do I know that this is more true than the previous expectations I have of them? Because children have always done this. They have always fulfilled their role and their job and their purpose for being on this earth. Oh, I hear this all the time. In my day, children just didn't behave like this. Today, the children are ruling the adults, and it should be the other way around. What is becoming of this world? Children are just not what they used to be. I'd like to take a second to read a quote written by Socrates in 470 BC, which was nearly 2,500 years ago. The children now love luxury. They have bad manners, contempt for authority. They show disrespect for elders and love chatter in place of exercise. Children are now tyrants, not the servants of their household. They no longer rise when elders enter the room. They contradict their parents, chatter before company, gobble up sweets at the table, cross their legs, and tyrannize their teachers. That was a quote by Socrates, nearly 2,500 years ago. Children haven't changed. They have always and will always continue to do their job. And their job is to hold a mirror in front of us and to show us what healing needs to take place within us. I'm going to ask you a question with some real introspection, and I'd like you to think about anybody you know who is truly happy. When I say truly happy, I mean they radiate joy. They have a spring in their step. They roll with the punches. When bad things happen, they quickly get up. They are happy most of the time. Okay, now if you have somebody in mind, I want you to think, how much work did they have to do on themselves to get there? Now there's a lot of theories behind this. Lots of people think you have to go through the pain to be able to be happy. But I think a lot of this could just be avoided if we are more self-aware. I have never seen a generation that is more unhappy, more depressed, more anxious, worried, and stressed than now. And I'm not speaking about COVID, I'm speaking about before COVID. A generation that turns to drugs and alcohol to numb their pain. A generation that's in emotional turmoil, who need copious amounts of medication just to get out of bed in the morning, who have a very low self-belief, self-esteem, and self-worth, who are looking for outside validation to just feel good enough, and who are more angry and bitter than happy and calm. And why? Well, I'm going to tell you why. It's because we were raised by parents who didn't know better. We were raised by parents who were controlled by their parents. We were raised by parents who punished us, sometimes quite harshly, who operated out of a space of fear, who were extremely worried about what other people thought, who hadn't healed themselves, and who did not have the tools or awareness to know better. Albert Einstein said, "The definition of insanity is repeating the same thing again and again and expecting a different result." If we look at our generation and we look at how we were raised, why are we raising our children exactly the same? Why are we not looking in and going, this is not working, how can I change it? I'm here to tell you that by the age of 7 years old, your child's world has actually been formed. Yes, there's space for tweaks and adjustments and growth, and there will definitely be things that happen along the way. But by the age of 7, what they have heard, what they've seen, and what they've experienced pretty much shapes who they will become. It is scary to see a generation of our children who are scared to make mistakes, who lack self-belief, who, when I do work with them, cannot come up with good qualities about themselves. Tell me something that's true about you. What are you good at? Are you kind? Are you considerate? And they actually don't know. When I give them a mirror and they need to reflect in the mirror and connect with themselves and tell themselves their special qualities, that they actually cannot find them. I'm here to tell you categorically, and I know this to be true, that it is not your child who is not listening that causes your anger. It is not your child who's making you late that causes your anger. It is not your busy child or your disrespectful child or your dishonest child that is causing your anger. If we could shift this and just see our children as our biggest gifts, if we could just look at them and go, you are bringing me a gift of healing, instead of going, what you're doing needs to be controlled and fixed. What you're doing, I need to change. I want to share a very personal experience, and it actually happened this week, yesterday to be precise. Not one of my proudest mommy moments. I am confident in saying that I've been working on myself for the greater part of the last 13 years. And so I know this to be true, that it is never my children who are triggering me, but rather healing that needs to take place when I'm triggered. And so my daughter came home from school 5 days ago, and she came home in a foul mood. She was so angry and had a big giant temper tantrum. And I did everything by the book, everything that I've learned, everything that I teach. I noticed I was triggered. I removed myself from the situation. I took 3 deep breaths. I comforted her. I connected with her. And it probably went on for almost 2 hours. Mission accomplished, right? No. Day 2, she comes home from school. She's still angry. She's taking it out on her brothers. Day 3, she comes home. So day 2, 3, and 4, I was still checking in. What is she bringing me? Breathing, connecting. And in my opinion, I was really succeeding. But I hadn't found the root yet, so I was still being brought exactly the same message. Yesterday morning, I properly lost it with her. It was the most ridiculous thing. She wanted me to do 2 French plats, and that takes much longer than a pony, and I said no, and she couldn't accept it, and she sulked, and whatever that looked like, and I just lost it. When I got into the car, I felt terrible, and I turned to her and I said, my baby, I'm sorry. And she said, it's fine. And I said, it's not fine. I said, it's totally not fine. No matter what you've done, I don't need to speak to you like that. And then it hit me that the growth and the learning opportunity was way outweighed the damage. And right there in that moment, she saw, number one, that I don't need to be perfect, that I am human, and that I can feel my feelings, make mistakes, and apologize. And it's okay to make mistakes as long as we're learning. This is what I teach children, and I need to live it more. It didn't feel good, but it definitely didn't come with a whole day of beating myself up. I'm a terrible mother. I'm going to destroy my child today. None of that. It happened. I know I did it wrong, and I can do better. Lesson learned. Let's move forward. So I have some very specific things that I'd like to recommend, highly recommend. And if you do these things with your children, or if you shift to do these things within your home, the benefits are endless, not only for you, but also for your children. So first and foremost, it is so important to allow your children space to breathe. And this is what that looks like. They come home from school and they just have breathe time. Not breathe as in meditate and calm down time. I'm speaking go be kids time. Let them climb, let them mess, let them fight. And for just a certain amount of time, notice how uncomfortable it is for you not to be controlling them. And know that it's in that space where you allow your children to be that they learn who they are. I think there's nothing more tragic than becoming an adult who doesn't even know who we are. So allowing them space. And in the beginning when I did this, I had to actually physically set an alarm on my phone, sit on my hands, and not do anything for 20 minutes. And then I made it 30 minutes. And now they can have 2 hours easily where I don't get involved. And guess what? Nobody kills anybody. They're still all three alive to tell the tale. But when I was setting the alarm and I was sitting on my hands and I was noticing and giving them time to breathe, I noticed that within a short space of time, I would usually have tried to control something 15, 16, 17 times. Put your clothes in the washing. Put your plates in the sink. Get off devices. It's homework time. Oh my goodness. Can you imagine what it must feel like to be so controlled? So the first step is to allow them to breathe. Right. Step 2. This is a big one for me. Stop worrying about what other people think. Recently, I went to go fetch my little guy from school and he was at the top balcony and I told him to come down and he was like, no, you come to me. And I was like, no, you come to me. And he was like, come to me. And I saw everybody looking at him and I saw everybody looking at me and everything inside of me wanted to die of embarrassment. And then I thought, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't even know these people. I'm not going to make a decision according to how other people are thinking. And instead, I made a choice to go up the stairs and get him. And it just made me realize that as much work as I've done, I still worry about what other people think. I don't even know those people. They're strangers. And it makes it so much harder when you do know the people. The next thing that I recommend, and I highly recommend, is that you model to them what it is you want from them. So if you want them to be empathetic, you need to be that. If you want them to have good manners, you need to be that. If you want them to be able to feel their feelings, you need to feel your feelings. And so every single amount of behavior that a child shows is purely because they've learned it somewhere, and it's generally from a parent. So it's fine to pass the buck and say, you know what, it must be the teacher. Unfortunately, it generally is the parent. So when my child is standing there shouting at me, instead of me saying, don't shout at me, I go, when was the last time I spoke to them like that? And I can generally find a time. That's the scary part. The next thing I want you to do is start to get ready to feel very uncomfortable. All these behaviors that we're speaking about today are going to make you feel like a rebellious teenager. It's like you're going against the grain and everything you've ever been taught to be true. So notice that you're uncomfortable and then choose a very different thing anyway. Don't go back to the old and try to get comfortable again. The next thing I like to recommend is that you stop trying to be perfect and to give yourself a break and to be kind to yourself. So if we could just treat ourselves half as well as what we treat our children, oh my goodness, do you know how amazing we would feel? We forgive our kids, we beat ourselves up. We make sure that they have a beautiful, healthy, packed lunch, we don't even eat. We make sure they drink water every day, we go an entire day without drinking water. I learned this concept and it's called self-parenting. And if we could just show ourselves a bit of the kindness that we do our children and stop trying to be perfect, then we will definitely see beautiful results. The next thing I can highly recommend is to spend time developing, healing, and growing you. There's no adult in this world that doesn't need healing. There's no adult in this world that doesn't need to grow or develop in some way. No adult. So the next thing is to create a space for yourself to breathe. So I recommended that you create a space for your children to breathe and be. And now you can do the same for yourself. Oh, the next thing is so important, and that is to allow yourself to feel. We weren't raised in an environment where feeling was normal, as in, I'm just going to have a good cry. It was more like, suck it up, I'm counting to 5, and if I get to 5 and you haven't stopped crying, I'm going to give you something to cry about. And then you're like, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, tears are gone. Do that for enough years and become an adult who doesn't even know how to cry anymore. Crying is so healing. It heals trauma. There's so much research on needing to feel and cry. And there's 3 ways that you release trauma. And that is through crying, through screaming and having a temper tantrum. What do? We stop our children from doing that. And the last one is through laughing. And how often do we have a gut laugh? And then the very, very last thing that I would highly recommend is that you allow them to fail and then be there to just love and guide them through it. So don't expect them to always achieve, and rather encourage failure and then take a step back and go, okay, what did we learn? Be there to love them and guide them through it. And then the very, very last thing is to notice your triggers, to calm down before making very sound choices. Because if you do this, if you do all these things and you get really uncomfortable and you start to do things very differently and you allow your children space to breathe and you stop trying to control them and you look inward and you do your healing and you do your growing, do you know what message you're going to be giving your children? And this always hits me so deeply. You're going to be telling them that you do matter, that you are loved, you are lovable, and that you are absolutely 100% enough. You are enough exactly as you are. There is nothing that needs to be changed. There are no flaws, and there's nothing that needs to be fixed. Imagine if you could feel like that about yourself. How much happier would you be as an adult? So if I go back to the beginning and I ask the very same question, if you could have one wish, we said it would for our kids to be happy. And how are they going to be happy? By you looking at things very differently, by you making very conscious choices to stop repeating the same behavior that isn't serving us. And really to come from a space of, you know what, I didn't know better and I can do better. I think it's important that I reiterate that I'm very far from the perfect mother. I mess up probably daily, but that's okay. And that, I can tell you, has been a big part of my journey. And I can safely say that if people who know me would be able to vouch that I am truly happy, that I radiate happiness, that I have a spring in my step, and that I roll with the punches, I'm creating the most beautiful life of my dreams through grit. And that has come through a huge amount of growth, development, introspection, tears, crying, and healing. So thank you for watching this podcast. It was episode 13, and I'll see you again in 2 weeks' time. In the meantime, if there are any questions that you might have, maybe you want to have a chat to me about things you're struggling with your child. Maybe you want to speak about things you're struggling with yourself. I do a lot of one-on-one coaching. I'm actually international now. I have clients in Australia, in America, and in the UK. And I'm all about rapid results. So it's not about needing to need me for the rest of your life, but it's about me giving you the tools so that you can become your own pillar of strength. And that's where the name Grit comes from. So I would love to leave you tonight with one last thought, that you are awesome and that you are beautiful. And the fact that you're even watching this podcast tells me you're an amazing parent. And again, I believe we could always do better. And let's just change this world. It's enough already. It's enough addiction. It's enough depression. It's enough. Thank you so much, and I'll see you in 2 weeks.